everyone, and welcome to That Business Show 2.0. I am your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. New episodes airing weekday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at thatbusinessnetwork.com, and then made available on demand on iTunes and as well as on YouTube. This show works to inspire entrepreneurism as we talk with many different business owners, community, political, and business leaders each and every morning on the program. Been on the air, whether between local AM radio and podcasts now for 3.5 years, over 1,000 different interviews completed, and all available on iTunes and on YouTube, as mentioned before. So I'm very excited today to talk with Tamara Kleinberg. She is the founder of Launch Street, the online innovation program and community creator of the proprietary Innovation Quotient Edge, the only assessment able to help you discover your unique innovator archetype so you can innovate on demand. And she is a sought-after keynote speaker, CrossFit addict, and knee-high sock lover. So, Tamara, welcome to the program today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
And I also took this assessment, so we'll talk a little bit about my own results, my own ability to innovate. But first, before we get into that, Tamara, tell us about this product and what this is.
Yeah, so let me just back up and give a little bit of context. I used to believe, like I think a lot of us, that, being creative or innovative was for the select few, or that, you just had to step outside your comfort zone, right? That's what it took to be innovative. But, I've been in innovation for 20 plus years now, worked with, Fortune 500, healthcare, consumer goods, entrepreneurs, startups, and, had my own business. And what I realized in that time actually blew my assumptions out the window. What I discovered is that everybody innovates. We're actually all capable of it, but how we do it is unique to each of us. So we wanted to create an assessment that showed all of us our natural innovation strengths. So, quite basically, we could do more of what works for us and less of what doesn't, so that we could bring our best selves to our work and life and have those innovative ideas and solutions that we're looking for. Just like Jamie, you took it. So you're an instinctual futuristic on the triggers, which is so fascinating to me when you're ready to dig in. But it just shows that how you innovate versus how I innovate, I'm an experiential risk taker, are different. And we need to tap those strengths of our own if we want to be an innovator, which we all are.
Okay. Now, your brand is Launch Street. People can learn more about you also at the website. Go to launchstreet.com. And we're going to be discussing this innovation tool. For listeners and viewers that want to take this assessment themselves, how best can they receive the assessment?
Yeah, so if they go to our website, go to launchstreet.com, there's a link on there that they can get to it.
Okay. And who should take this assessment on innovation? Is it people just in management, or people that are, 9-to-5ers also benefit from this knowledge?
Yeah.
Who will benefit from this?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked that question the way you did too, Jamie, because innovation is something that let's say you're in a large company and you could be on the front lines, or you could be way up in management, or, C-suite leadership. Everybody in the organizations that thrive are responsible for innovation. So if you're in a company, you really want your whole team to take it so that everybody can bring that to the table. Innovation shouldn't be siloed. It's one of the biggest mistakes I see with the companies that we work with when we go in. So on the organizational side, the large company side, we want to see a whole team up, down, and sideways on that ladder take it so that everybody participates in solving those challenges and seizing those opportunities. And on the other side to that, I've taken it obviously because it's my assessment, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs and startups take it. And the reason there is when you understand how you innovate, you're able to optimize and build the business that works for you. So, we as entrepreneurs, we don't have the luxury of just doing mediocre. We have got to get out there, make an impact. We've got to stand out. We have limited resources. So I want people to build a business that actually taps into their strengths versus sucks them of energy and works to their weaknesses. And what we find with entrepreneurs is the ones that take the assessment and understand that innovator archetype are able to be more productive. They're able to be high performer. They're able to take that knowledge and actually gain a competitive edge in the marketplace.
How does this compare to like the DISC profile? We're all familiar with these tools that, guide the managers on hiring people and fitting teams together. How would the Innovation Quotient Edge profile or performance assessment work with like a DISC profile, or are they kind of, similar?
So, here's how I'd kind of describe the difference and the complement of it, because they are different, but they can actually fit together really well. DISC, Myers-Briggs, all of those are bigger personality assessments. What we do is we create that layer of innovation. It's the innovative packaging on top of your personality. So we all have personalities, and that's great. And we all have just general strengths, and that's great. But what this does, what the IQE does, is allow you to understand how you innovate inside your personality. And we see some crossover. If you're a high D on the DISC profile like I am, I'm a huge, almost all D, a little bit of I, and like no S and C.
Right.
If you're a high D, you tend to also be a risk taker or experiential on our assessment. But overall, I like to think of them as complements to each other. Great to know your baseline, great to know your personality, and now let's go up that triangle to how you innovate, which is where we fit in.
How did you find the assessment on innovation? Why are you such a lover of this tool and assessment? Describe a little bit more also about your business and how you use this tool with your own practice.
Yeah, let me start with kind of why I'm so obsessed with innovation and that we're all innovators. On a very kind of grand scale, we weren't put on this earth to blend in. We were put here to stand out. And in order to stand out, we have to understand what makes us different, what helps us bring that differentiated value to the table. And that ultimately is innovation. And, we have this big moonshot goal in my business, and that is to unleash 1 million innovators into the world. We just decided to put the stake into the ground, I think about 90 days ago. We're all really excited about it. And I think we're at 3,218 as of yesterday, because we just started. We're not counting the past. We're counting only moving forward. But here's the thing. If we unleash 1 million innovators into the world, think about the problems we could solve. Imagine the solutions we could come up with. And we've got major problems in this world, not just what's the next product I'm going to launch, but how do we deal with our water situation? How do we deal with space? How do we have big problems, but if more of us are tapping that superpower, we might be able to, make a dent in those things.
Now, describe your assessment. You used a couple of terms to describe myself. You used the term to describe yourself.
Yeah.
And then I think of the great innovators like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. How do they rate on the innovation scale compared to like what you have or what I have? What's the difference? What am I lacking that they have or something?
Yeah, you're not lacking anything, Jamie. So, there's 9 triggers to innovation. And the way it works is it's the combination of your top 2 power triggers and the presence of your dormant trigger that come together to create your innovator archetype. So everybody that takes the assessment, if you think of an equalizer on a stereo, just to date myself, like back in the old days,
Right.
we're kind of like dialed up and down on all of them. But there are 2 that really are your power places where if you play there, you're going to be more innovative in a much easier way. And your dormant's kind of like having a headwind. I think it's the right one. I always get mixed up between tailwind and headwind, but the one that's pushing you back and that's actually causing resistance. So that's going to kind of weaken you a little bit. It's going to be exhausting to play there, and you want to play in your power triggers. But so someone like you're an instinctual futuristic. Those are your 2 power. And what that says is that, you're really good on the instinctual side at having this circuitous thought pattern and pulling together all these, what seem to be disparate dots to the rest of us, to come together to find these patterns and these trends and these ideas. Because of that, you're really good at finding innovation where others see kind of randomness out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part is with the futuristic part, and this is where I'd say you have something in common with someone like Steve Jobs. And when I explain it, I think you'll see why. Futuristic, for you, it's all about Tomorrowland, what's possible. And the beauty of that is you take today's data, information, content, and you turn it into tomorrow's opportunities. So while we're all stuck on today, maybe solving today's problems, maybe even yesterday's problems, you're actually finding tomorrow's opportunities, creating new behaviors and new ideas. So when you think about that, just to back up for a second, and you think about someone like, let's take Steve Jobs, who was an incredible innovator. He actually, if you would ask people, do you want a product that, okay, it's not as powerful as a computer and you can't make a phone call on it and it's half the size of this but double the size of that, would you want it? People would say no, because we're all in today. But Steve Jobs understood tomorrow, and
Right.
Tomorrow was an iPad. We all have it.
Right.
But that's you too, right? You innovate in that way as well.
You know, Henry Ford has a famous quote that he went to the marketplace and asked them what they wanted. They would have told him a faster horse.
Exactly. That's exactly right. People are solving today's problems, but futuristics like you see into the future.
Now, I remember doing the disc profile many years ago, and I had a high D and everything else was low, and my curve looked like nothing else compared to the others. When you look at the results of mine, does mine stand out as unique? I always say I do have a personality unlike others. I do think differently than other people.
Yeah.
How does the mine compare to what you see in your practice?
Well, it's interesting. Because we're on a show, I don't have instead of a keynote, I don't have my slides up behind me, but I have a whole pattern data, and I've seen heat maps of organizations, and it's always every organization, every entrepreneur group has their own pattern to it with higher here and lower here. Here's what I will tell you, Jamie. Futuristic is not one of the more common traits. So that one tends to be a lot lower. Just if you looked at the tens of thousands of people that have taken the IQE, which we have, it tends to rank lower. So that one is one that we don't see very often, but we see it in you, and that combination of instinctual futuristic, so being able to see patterns and then pulling that ideas into the future is really interesting.
Currently talking to Tamara Kleinberg. She's the founder of Launch Street, where we're talking about her Innovation Quotient Edge assessment. So you can go to launchstreet.com and pull up the assessment. It only takes 7 minutes, and so you can pull that up and take a look at that. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about her personal assessment with the Innovation Quotient Edge, and how, again, people can use that to better themselves in their own business, and also how to pair up different combinations of people, what you have and who you work well with and what you should be looking for, and how to use this tool, again, as a tool for your business. So again, learn more at go-to-launchstreet.com. And you're listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.
Our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring type products: hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tiles, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
Hi, Jackie Skelton from JR World Travel here. If you travel, you need a licensed professional travel consultant, not a computer. Your licensed professional consultant can get you more for your time and your money. Value for your money and experience, not marketing salesmanship. When you're sick, you call the doctor. When you need legal advice, you call an attorney. So the next time you want to go on any type of travel, call your licensed professional travel consultant who actually represents you. We specialise in group travel, family reunions, weddings, to escorting large groups or making special arrangements for the disabled. Please call 844 249 0190. We are a full-service travel consultancy offering worldwide concierge service. Air, land, sea, rivers, resorts, locally, nationally and internationally. Remember that number, 844 249 0190.
And welcome back to That Business Show 2.0. I am your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes a show business each weekday morning at 7 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com and made available on demand over on YouTube and on iTunes at the end of each week. So we're talking about how to be innovative with this assessment that's been put out by Tamara Kleinberg, and you can learn more about this and take the assessment at gotolaunchstreet.com. It only takes 7 minutes. You're going to get about a 9 or 10 page report that really breaks down your ability to innovate. And I found out through the assessment that I'm a futuristic. I have some similarities to Steve Jobs, and so that was very nice to hear. Tamara, describe yourself now and how your ability to innovate resonates with this assessment.
Yeah, so I'm an experiential risk taker. Those are the other two triggers on there. And my dormant is collaborative, which I have to tell you, Jamie, at first I was kind of offended that I got collaborative as dormant because I like people. And I was like, hey, wait a minute, hold on. This is my assessment. I should be able to control my results, but I can't. But here's basically what it boils down to is on the power trigger side, experiential and risk taker. So what that means is experientials are all about doing in motion, about innovating in 3D, it's all about action where the rubber meets the road. And experientials out there are great at innovation because ideas don't live in theory, they live in practice. And when we put ideas into practice, and whether that's duct tape or actually bringing the idea to life, doesn't matter. We see the possibilities and we're able to evolve it to a more innovative place. So like for someone like me, I have to do it. You can't talk to me about theory. If I have an idea, I have to put it into practice. And I'll give you a great example of this. It's so tiny, but it's such a good representation. Yesterday, actually, I was in Baltimore and actually in Adelphi, and I was out with the ARL, the Army Research Labs. These are the incredible scientists and operational people who keep our troops safe, who work on technology for them. Amazing, amazing group of people. And I was keynoting, and I wanted to try this exercise of passing out pennies as a way of showing commitment to doing one daily innovation deposit. And, I thought of the idea, I ran to the bank, I got the pennies, and I tried it. I couldn't, the idea of just thinking it through doesn't work. And in trial and error, I innovate. So I saw what worked, I saw what didn't work, but I can't just think about things. So if you're an experiential, we sometimes hold ourselves back by accidentally keeping stuff on paper, and we need to bring it to life. And the risk taker is all about being willing to be uncomfortable. It's not just the big leaps, it's in the everyday thing. So, you take that and you see how I built my business. We have, hackathons, we have innovation labs, we have all these ways that our clients, which we do a lot with organizations, can come in and tap the power of my experiential training and what I can do in innovation, and also leverage how they innovate in their ways to bring that strength to the table as well. And then, collaborative as a dormant, what that basically says to me is I don't pull disparate ideas and people together to create the idea. I create the idea first, and then I get feedback. And once I owned that, the stress went down.
Now, how should you pair people together? I mean, when we talk about DISC assessments, they say put the high D with the C or whatnot. And when you're doing the innovation quotient, for me, you said I'm a futuristic. Who would I pair good with on a team?
Yeah, so here's the couple things I want to say about this. So one is when you're thinking about what to pair and what to do, the first thing I tell people is make sure that you've got the right people doing the right thing. What we sometimes find is, a futuristic will be stuck doing a project that's managing yesterday's data. And it really kind of sucks the life out of you, doesn't it, Jamie? When that's what your day-to-day is,
right.
That's not where you thrive, right? You want to thrive on what's possible. So make sure you've got people doing the right things and focused in the right way to start. Then when it comes to pairing, there's a couple things to consider here. One is, can you get as much diversity in the thinking when tackling a challenge or working together as a team as possible? What we don't want is a cluster of one type of innovator on a team. That's great, they're all great, but then everybody's tackling the challenge in the same way. And how cool would it be if you're the futuristic comes together with an inquisitive who goes deep and asks questions, who comes together with an experiential who needs to see it in motion, and the three of you tackle a challenge together. So you want to get diversity in your teams. And then I think the last part to that, which you were kind of hinting at with the pairing up, is whatever your dormant is, I want you to find someone who has that as their power trigger. So if you're an experiential as your dormant, which means you prefer to think it through just a little bit more before you actually put it into action, it might be helpful for you to pair up with someone like me, who's an experiential, who has no thought process. It's all about putting it into action, but our combination is going to make a more thought through and powerful, innovative solution in the end.
What is the history and the research behind this assessment? Can you explain the background of this assessment?
Yeah, so it's 20 plus years of work and research. Like I said, I've been in this business for longer than I care to admit. And just to date myself, I'm a child of the 80s. And so that's kind of the baseline of it. Then we went back and we looked at the scientific research about how does the brain work when it's in that, we talk about that creative flow, that state. What happens when you're uncomfortable? What happens when you play, when you discover, when you're in curiosity? So we combine together our work and research and all the experience and the kind of ethnographic work that we had done, and we combine that with the scientific data on how the mind works and put those two together. Then on top of that, we gave it to tens of thousands of people and tested it real time for, like a year and a half before it even went public.
And who uses this assessment? Are your clients like large corporations? Do small business owners, use the assessment? And how do you spread the word on this assessment?
Yeah, so I'm so lucky because I get to work on both sides of that spectrum, and I get to cross over some of that knowledge to each other as well, because, small companies have something to learn from large and vice versa. So on the large side, we've worked with everyone from General Mills to Procter & Gamble to Disney to Ricoh, and for them, it's all about the team, right? Like, what is the team? How do we innovate as a team or as an organization? And then on the flip side, we've done a lot of work with small businesses. We have a very close relationship with this catering company out here in Colorado, second largest in Colorado, but they're a small business, I don't know what the revenues are, but small relative to, Fortune 500. And we've done a lot of work with them and the IQE and optimizing their teams and how they work. In fact, one of their team members, so cool, once she took the assessment, she was actually futuristic as well. It's funny that you are too, and we're talking about it. And she realized that she was in the wrong role, and they put her in this new role that's all about designing themes for their clients. Because she's a futuristic, she can see how it comes together, and her other is a collaborative, so then she can pull the right people in to get it done. She is thriving in her new role. So it's kind of across the board that way. The common theme between them is they know and they recognize that innovation is their competitive advantage and their people are their greatest untapped asset. Right. And as long as you understand that, this is the right assessment for you.
It's important to use these assessments, such as the DISC, such as the innovation quotient, because if you got people in the wrong roles, you're going to be losing productivity. You're going to be making them unhappy. And so you putting them in the right roles, they're going to be more productive naturally because they're happier. They're challenged. Exactly. Correct?
That's so right. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we, where we've been in that job that just wasn't the right fit for us. And every day you go home, you're like, I am exhausted. Like, this is so hard for me. And not because you had to do things you didn't want to do. We all do that. But because you weren't in the right role. So this helps you figure that out. And it helps you optimize your team so that everybody's playing to their strength. And when that happens, as you were alluding to with productivity, everybody becomes a high performance team member. And we all need that. We don't have the time or the resources, no matter what size company we're in, to be mediocre. It's not enough.
Do people's assessments change over time? I did the DISC profile so many years ago. I wonder if I go back, would I see the same curve, some 20 years later? Do you think that people's personalities shift, or do they usually stay, kind of the same?
Yeah, so they stay relatively constant. But here's what I'll tell you. One of the three triggers that come up as your two power, your dormant, might shift a little bit, or the percentage of it might shift, because the reality is, it is a little bit contextual. If you're in a leadership role and you are really learning how to be more collaborative and to tap disparate people and ideas for innovation, you're going to have a little bit more of that than maybe you did at the start of your career when you were just going solo and getting the stuff done. But so far what we've seen is that this is about how you innovate. So yes, things get dialed up and dialed down, but basically it stays relatively constant. And I've taken it I took it in the very beginning, and I actually took it a month ago, and I tried to get different answers, to be honest, but get different answers, but I didn't. I got the same. And I was like, oh my God, it's not interesting.
Do you see any recognizable differences across cultures, across countries? Do you have that type of data and input to see the different cultures and how the innovation changes from maybe country to country or culture to culture?
Yeah, it's so interesting. You're the second person to ask me international in the last 24 hours. Yeah, so there's two things that we see. One is from an international perspective, there's a couple of them that are either really dialed up or dialed down relative to culture. Those two are risk taker, being willing to be uncomfortable, stepping out on that ledge, kind of leaping and pushing the limits of possibilities. In some cultures, that's more accepted than in others. So even if it is your natural strength, it's going to be a little bit lower because you've been shoving it in a drawer for so long. So we'll see it pop up, but we'll see it also just generally the percentage be lower. And the other one is fluid, which is all about navigating ambiguity. In some cultures, that is really, again, valued, and in some it isn't, and it's all about structure. So you'll see it on the assessment, and you'll see that could even be their power, but the overall percentages are lower. Where I think what we're starting to see with the data, and we've just started to really cut this, the difference is by industry, and I think that has to do with who gravitates towards what. So we do a lot of work with IT industry, CIOs. A lot of them have tweakers, which is all about editing, evolving. It's never final, and I think it attracts that kind of person who's looking to kind of constantly tweak and solve problems because that's what they do all day.
Good information. Tamara Kleinberg, founder of LaunchStreet. Again, when we're talking about the Innovation Quotient Edge, learn your IQE over at go-to-launchstreet.com. So, Tamara, good information. I love talking science. I love learning more about my own personality. So, again, I learned that I'm a unique thinker, and you compared me to Steve Jobs. So, I like that too.
So it can't be bad.
So, Tamara, thank you so much for being with me today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And again, you can take your own assessment at go-to-launchstreet.com. It only takes 5 to 7 minutes. Get emailed a report over to yourself with about 9 or 10 pages of information. So again, go-to-launchstreet.com and learn more about this program at thatbusinessnetwork.com, where we air new episodes each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and make them available on demand on iTunes and on YouTube. And if you'd like to come onto the program, please visit tbsinterview.com. So again, you've been listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.
Hi, welcome to Yeagers. We just want to take a minute and show you what we're all about. At Yeagers, our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring type products, hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tiles, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
Hi, Jackie Skelton from JR World Travel here. If you travel, you need a licensed professional travel consultant, not a computer. Your licensed professional consultant can get you more for your time and your money. Value for your money and experience, not marketing salesmanship. When you're sick, you call the doctor. When you need legal advice, you call an attorney. So the next time you want to go on any type of travel, call your licensed professional travel consultant who actually represents you. We specialise in group travel, family reunions, weddings, to escorting large groups or making special arrangements for the disabled. Please call 844-249-0190. We are a full-service travel consultancy offering worldwide concierge service. Air, land, sea, rivers, resorts, locally, nationally and internationally. Remember that number, 844-249-0190.
everyone, Jamie Maloney here, host of That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes a show business. Weekday mornings, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, available in high-definition video on thatbusinessnetwork.com, and then on demand at the end of the week on iTunes and on YouTube. So today we're going to talk about the art of improvisation, a skill that I love to learn more and more about. I've got Bob Callahan with me today. He is the author of Getting to Yes and. He is a veteran improv performer, university professor, and consultant. He's going to show us how to improve your odds of success through the practice of improvisation, a set of learnings and experiences that train your mind to react, adapt, and communicate effectively before a crisis occurs. And he's trained with Amy Poehler and Tina Fey. So excited again to talk to Bob Callahan today. Bob, welcome to the program today.
Thanks very much for having me, Jamie. I'm glad to be here.
So first off, just tell us, why is improv so important to business?
Well, in business improv, the way that we define it is on these three core competencies: reacting, adapting, communicating. Reacting, if you're focused and present in real time at a very high level. Adapting, if you're reacting within parameters or trying to achieve a specific outcome, you're reacting and adapting. And then the subroot to both of these is communicating, as we do not operate in a vacuum. There's always someone with whom you can react and adapt, or something in our environment to which we can react and adapt. And of course, reacting, adapting, and communicating is applicable in a number of different arenas, not the least of which is in business. So when you start looking at those three core competencies, really what you're talking about is, how do you behave with people in real time? How do you develop relationships? How do you make decisions in real time or rapidly? How do you creatively solve problems? How do you innovate? The list will go on and on as it goes toward defining improv.
So give me your background. Were you an entrepreneur and then you found improv? Were you an improvisational actor, then found business? Give me your background before we go on.
Well, I have an undergrad degree from the University of Illinois in Chicago in business, and appropriately enough, it's a BS in business.
Right.
And I was a very good businessman at a very young age, and then in my early mid-20s, I left business completely, even though I was being headhunted by a lot of great Chicago public relations firms and advertising firms. And when I left business, I dove into improvisation, and I committed to improvisation fully with the goal and the sole intent of being a professional improviser, which in the 1990s was an oxymoron. And I burned through my savings account,
right,
trying to prove it that I could do it. And it was in the late 90s that I, upon living years paycheck to paycheck and just struggling to get by, decided I was not performing at the top of my intelligence. And serendipitously, around that time, I had the unique opportunity to collaborate with a Duke University Fuqua School of Business professor to create the world's first improv program in any top-tier business school that would eventually become accredited program. And I became adjunct and started the company from there.
Okay, so this is a program that students can learn in the college. What college is it at? Which program is it?
Well, I'm an adjunct at the Duke University Fuqua
okay.
School of Business, and that's where it started. I'm also now an adjunct at Columbia Business School. I teach in their executive education department, so it's C-level status down, and that's really what I teach in my business as well, how to use the tenets of improvisation at an elite level.
How popular is this class among students? I myself would be all over this class, but a lot of business professionals are maybe a little introverted, a little scared of having to think on their feet in an acting type of environment. Talk to me about the popularity of the course at the schools.
Well, if you go back to our first program in 2000, that was the first execution, January in 2000, and you go forward to our 18th iteration, which just took place this last January 2017, you would have seen an evolution that would be hard for you to wrap your mind around. So the MBA students have always been right on top of this. They get it right away. They don't need to be spoon-fed what this is all about. They love the experiential learning aspect and really see the applicability of it, and have since the very first programs. Now, once you start, though, thinking about more veteran, seasoned business professionals, the level of pushback that we got in the 1999, 2000, 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, probably, even, was absolutely tremendous, because you have to go back and think, where was improvisation as an art form at that time in the late 1990s, early 2000s? And the truth was, it was not even accepted in Hollywood. In the industry itself didn't accept improv or improvisers really as a viable talent whatsoever. And once that really started catching hold there in the early mid aughts in Hollywood, you saw shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm take off, and Hollywood embraced it. Then business started embracing it as well. So it's changed considerably how we look at it. Now, 18 years later, businesses and businessmen and women really see the value of being able to adapt at a high level and communicate at a high level.
I can remember watching Whose Line Is It Anyways, which is probably the pinnacle of improvisational skills. Business improv is nowhere near that level of a challenge. I mean, they give those actors and comedians some very, very difficult things to improvise on, and they do tremendous. I try to think of putting myself in those situations, and it kind of scares me, but business improv is nowhere near on that level. And so give us some basic techniques that people can use in business improv, including the title of your book, which is Yes and. I mean, that's a very important lesson that a lot of people should be aware of.
Absolutely. So why don't we start there? That is the cornerstone of improvisation all around the world, that fantastic two-word phrase, yes and. Yes is unconditional acceptance. You give somebody a gift, an offer, an opportunity, a piece of advice, words, reaction. You accept that at face value. And as it relates to business improv, is a bridge to you, and is the bridge to your intelligence, your background, your education, your experiences, your philosophy, your passion. So yes really is thoughtfulness, and is the bridge to how you're thoughtful. And once you really start using yes and on a regular basis, what you're going to find is that simple two-word technique will actually slow the brain down. If you are simply just going to react to what somebody says, you have to be present and focused in the moment at a very high level, which of course leads to presence if we're going the leadership route, or can extend over to mindfulness if you're talking about the awareness of slowing the brain down to be present, simply to react and adapt. Also, there's a level of authenticity that needs to take place, which means that engagement increases as well simply by using this two-word phrase. The most common way, though, yes and is used in business is as a creation or ideation or brainstorming tool, because yes is unconditional acceptance and is what you do with it in a way to contribute to the success or the greater good of the project. So it's a way to postpone judgment using yes and. That doesn't mean abandon judgment. It just simply means defer judgment. Postpone it until you get that collection of ideas. And the byproduct of postponing judgment is not just a collection of ideas. It's a way to show that you value talent. You value the people who are participating and contributing to an ideation session or brainstorming session or basic one-on-one communication and collaboration. So this is just literally the tip of the iceberg using that two-word phrase, yes and it's not the only improv technique that's in the book.
And it works in opposition to the very contradictory or troubling phrase when you say yes, but, which is triggers, a defensive mechanism in the person that you're speaking to. And I've been through workshops where people have put us through these yes and yes but tests. And so as a business owner in negotiations, you should always be thinking yes and, not yes but, unless absolutely necessary. How would you advise?
Absolutely. So if you're talking about negotiations that you're participating in, or even mediation in which you will have a third party or are the third party helping that negotiation take place, you go back to the Bill Ury book, Getting to Yes. And that's the openness and potential of understanding the root causes of the conflict and getting them in a communicative fashion so that you can ultimately find the answer of this. There is a significant difference, though, between yes and yes but. And since we talked a little bit about the evolution of business improv as improv relates to a general understanding and the population, I think it's important to point out that once upon a time, and not too long ago, as little as about 10 years ago, yes, but was viewed as a polite no. So to be as clear as contact lenses, yes, but is not a polite no, it's a condescending no. And most people will see past that smoke and mirrors. The smoke will clear up and the mirrors will as well. And people will understand that you are trying to undermine them. You're trying to confuse them. You're trying to make them believe that you are on their side, when in truth, the but will eliminate what was said before it and undermine that relationship.
Currently talking to Bob Callahan, again, author of Getting to Yes and The Art of Business Improv, a bestseller book. And I know this book is filled with countless tips for business professionals. Availability of the book, Bob, where can people pick this up?
Pretty much anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, online,
And people,
indie bookstores.
and that's good because a lot of people call a book a bestseller, and it's a book bestseller for like an hour on Amazon. I mean, he's in storefronts, and so there's a lot of great information inside this book. What inspired you to write the book? We always talk with business owners who have all this knowledge, and we say, write a book, write a book. What made you actually write that book?
I love improvisation fully. It's one of the greatest communication forms out there and one of the greatest art forms ever. And I didn't see a book like this anywhere, especially one that, and we haven't talked about this aspect of it, links the experiential learning that improvisation inherently provides to business through high-end academia and also through behavioral psychology and social psychology and behavioral theory, decision-making, organizational theory. And this is, for the last 16 years, a great passion of mine as well. And so I wanted to articulate why and how the art of improvisation is such an impactful tool in business by underscoring it in those behavioral sciences and real world experience. So I wanted to fill a niche. And of course, I wanted people to know where I come from in business improv. And lastly, and certainly not least, I wanted a little legacy for my kids. If they want to see what I did, they can have an opportunity to open up the book, and I stand behind it. I'm proud of the book, and I think that's important.
We'll cover some of that theory that you talked about there coming into this next segment. Got to take a break right now. Currently talking to Bob Callahan, CEO and author of the book, Getting to Yes and you can learn more about him at that website, gettingtoyesand.com, as well as businessimprov.com, and more about us at thatbusinessnetwork.com. So you're listening to That Business Show 2.0. I am your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.
Hi, welcome to Yeager's. We just want to take a minute and show you what we're all about. At Yeager's, our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring type products, hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tiles, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
Hi, Jackie Skelton from JR World Travel here. If you travel, you need a licensed professional travel consultant, not a computer. Your licensed professional consultant can get you more for your time and your money. value for your money, and experience, not marketing salesmanship. When you're sick, you call the doctor. When you need legal advice, you call an attorney. So the next time you want to go on any type of travel, call your licensed professional travel consultant who actually represents you. We specialise in group travel, family reunions, weddings, to escorting large groups or making special arrangements for the disabled. Please call 844-249-0190. We are a full-service travel consultancy offering worldwide concierge service. Air, land, sea, rivers, resorts, locally, nationally and internationally. Remember that number, 844-249-0190.
And welcome back to That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes show business. I'm your host, Jamie Maloney, and we have new episodes each weekday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on thatbusinessnetwork.com, on demand on iTunes and on YouTube. Talking to Bob Callahan, he is the best-selling author of the book, Getting to a Yes and, talking about the art of business improv. And I myself love learning about improv. I used to do a little stand-up comedy myself, which is in that same field, not exactly the same. I always say comedians learn their shtick, and if you throw them off track, you probably screwed them up. Improvisationalist comedians are truly a skill in of itself, and if you can learn that skill in business, you're going to be a much more successful entrepreneur. So Bob, in that last segment here, started to talk a little about the theory, the behavioral science behind the business improv. Talk to us as entrepreneurs and how we can better use these skills to get the relationships and to get those successful negotiations in our favor.
Absolutely. So I am a fellow entrepreneur and even specifically pioneering this field of business and improvisation together. And so as an entrepreneur, you really have to have that entrepreneurial mindset. Some of that comes in the form of energy, of course, and how you embody it. And it's also a mental framing wherein you will not give up. If other people have a problem and they can't figure out how to make 2 points connect, entrepreneurs say, it's my job to make them connect. If not, I don't get paid. It's my company. I have to make it work. I have to build these relationships. I have to negotiate. So let's go first to that energy manipulation. You have to have a drive, a fire, if you're an entrepreneur, in order to really execute at a high level. And so improvisers, before we get up on stage, we warm up pretty much before anything, because improvisers deal with the human brain the same way athletes deal with muscles. Meaning specifically, if you want a muscle group to operate at peak potential, what's the first thing you have to do?
Warm up, use it.
Yeah. Right, stretch out a little bit. And as a stand-up as well, before you get up on stage, you're in the zone. You're mentally thinking about your act. If you're really going to go out there and test new material or want to do it to the best of your ability, you're physically in a good state, just like elite athletes are before they go out there and perform. Just like entrepreneurs and even business people who have regular secure employment with a large organization should be doing before key phone calls, before key meetings, before key engagements. Get mentally and physically prepared to perform at elite level. So before a big game, do you think elite athletes are shooting out 20 emails and they just go running out on the court?
No, they're in the weight room doing a little weights and getting the muscles loosened up.
That's right. They're thinking about the competition. They're touching base with their team. They're thinking about what they want to do. They're loosening up their muscles. They're oxygenating their muscles. And that's what we're talking about as well before you go into a meeting. Make sure that you're mentally and physically prepared to perform at elite level. Now, going back to yes and, that was a language technique which definitely can influence other people to communicate more with you and open up that communication, especially in the spirit of a negotiation. Also, though, when used on a regular basis, and here's that behavioral psychology aspect of it, you start priming your brain to think that way. So you think more about the yes, unconditional acceptance, and what can I do about it? So you start thinking more about possibility and potential, and rather focusing on why you can't succeed, or focusing on the parameters in which you're not supposed to succeed, or why you can't break those parameters. There's always ways to figure out how to operate successfully in tight confines. It's just a matter of mental framing.
And improv is not necessarily being funny. I think a lot of people, just because of shows like Whose Line Is It Anyways, associate improv and comedy. Being a good improvisationalist doesn't necessarily have to do with being a comedian, right?
Not at all. That's a specific context for the improvisation. Yet, if you're a foodie and you watch any cooking shows, there's always an improv night when they're pulling ingredients out of a basket or a hat and saying, make it work in a short period of time. Special forces will tell you, and really any military will tell you that plans and planning really is everything. The execution of the plans is really where it's going to fall apart or come together. And that's improv right there. Just like athletes take a lot of study and practice in order to make it work, musicians practice, so that when they get out and improvise in their sets, they're ready to perform. The real truth is improvisation succeeds or fails at the pivotal moment when strategy and planning collide with execution.
Interesting.
When those two things come together, that's improv.
Interesting. Can you give us some examples of business leaders in the news who use improv effectively?
Well, I can tell you, let's start first with businesses that perhaps should have embraced change a little bit more and reacted to their competition. Very small ones like Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. Never thought people would go to a red box to get movies.
That's an incredible story of failure and failure to innovate. Blockbuster should be dominating the video market. They had control of everything at that time. So
absolutely. Mm-hmm. And Kodak's another parallel example of that. They both thought no one's going to want to avoid going to a store to pick up the box and look on the back to see the movie, or no one's going to want to look at pictures online. They're going to want to hold. Everyone's going to want to continue to hold the pictures, and instead of just going along with the competition and reacting and adapting to the competition, they stuck their heels into the sand and said, we're not moving. And because of that, where are they now?
They're out of business. They're out of business. I know we had a Blockbuster right next to me. It's probably the longest surviving Blockbuster because they just tore it down about 2 years ago. And I'm in Tampa, Florida, and it was right next to my real estate office. But I was surprised that thing lasted as long as it did. And just, even ironically enough, you mentioned Redbox. I remember when I saw those things sitting in front of 7-Elevens, like, what in the world? Who's going to rent a movie in front of a 7-Eleven? But, who am I? Then it definitely worked. And so you got to be able to improvise, got to be willing to innovate to survive in the world of business. Now, what about successful innovators and successful improvisers?
I think we could see a lot of them really in the technology departments. Of course, Twitter, the former CEO, Dick Costello, is a Chicago improviser who actually served time on stage, and he employed those techniques into the offices there, and Facebook is very adaptable. A lot of those .coms and the way that they communicate with each other and have evolved their corporate culture have done so in a very meaningful and impactful way. Then you look at some of the less obvious ones like Cisco, which is moving more from an actual tangible technology to a service-based company. And that's a lot of improvisation. Really, any organization that embraces change and pushes toward the future, it uses the tenets of improvisation, hopefully successfully, to make that happen.
Now, there is divergent and convergent thinking. Why do you need to be kept separate for the generation of killer ideas? Or why do they need to be kept separate, I should say, for the generation of killer ideas?
All right, so divergent thinking, just for those who might need a little refresher, this is a divergent thinking and convergent thinking is a model created in the 1960s by J.P. Guilford. It's a great way to frame why improvisation techniques are important. Divergent thinking is you start with a single point and then you diverge away from it. How many ideas can you come up with? How much exploration can take place? This is about the number of ideas. This is about failing early and failing often. Then draw a line to convergent thinking. This is the whittling down of ideas. This is the fine-tuning of ideas, the judging of ideas, the sorting out of ideas. Now, most great people think it's not great, driven people think it's actually faster to judge on the fly. That's a good idea or that's a bad idea. We can't do that because of these reasons. Give me another idea and I'll shoot it down, or I'll point out the budget that we have or why we've done this in the past and it hasn't worked. And we'll continue to try to get ideas by judging those ideas. And what that does, though, is tell the people inside the meeting that there's a right or wrong way to answer questions, to address problems, to hit a piñata, as if there's only one way to hit a piñata. And what we need to do is go into the divergent thinking phase, create a block of time, 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, depending on the problem, and say, for this period of time, we're going to fail. We're going to fail early. We're going to fail often. We're going to make a giant mess. It is about the number of ideas. And in doing so, you teach the people inside that meeting that it's okay to fail. It's okay to bring the best out of yourself by struggling, by exploring, by discovering. You separate that time of divergent thinking from the convergent thinking phase intentionally so that when those people who will invariably shoot down ideas do, they know that that's not going to happen in this block. That will happen in the convergent block. And that convergent block is very important. That's where you clean it up. That's where you separate the good from the bad. That's where the Darwinism of ideas comes to life, and the best ideas will succeed and the worst ideas will die. If you look at divergent thinking as creativity, it's the process of creation, and convergent thinking as innovation, driving that creation to a productive outcome. It's a good way to separate the two.
Now, you've trained and worked with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. Share with us a favorite anecdote from your working with the two.
Well, you know what? Working with those two was absolutely fantastic. I was a very young improviser. I think this was around 1995 in Chicago, maybe even still 1996. And they were just such caring improvisers. It was such a fantastic experience. They were on the same improv team together. And this is when the improv community in Chicago was so small, and you could go to it like I did on a nightly basis and watch elite level improvisers play. And to watch them perform was absolutely fantastic. And to get the opportunity to, get an arm around your shoulder and have them say, okay, Bob, why don't you try this physicality, or why don't you do this a little bit more? Why don't you do that? It's tremendously impactful. And the one thing that carries over that still resonates so heavily with me was from something that Tina Fey said to me. And she said, Bob, don't be clever. Don't be creative. Don't be funny. Be honest. Mm-hmm. Be present in the moment on stage and do the best you can to support everybody else around you. And that, I think, is a direct carryover into business improv.
Good information. Again, talking with Bob Callahan, CEO and author of the book, Getting to Yes and, The Art of Business Improv. And people can pick these up at businessimprov.com or gettingtoyesand.com. So, Bob, greatly appreciate you being with me today on the program. I love talking about comedy, improv, business, all that stuff. Good discussion. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you very much for having me, Jamie. I appreciate it as well.
Absolutely. And again, gettingtoyesand.com, businessimprov.com, and more about this program at thatbusinessnetwork.com, where new shows air each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then made available on demand on iTunes and on YouTube. So please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review. It helps the show grow and helps get the guests out to more and more people. And if you would like to be a guest on the program yourself, tbsinterview.com for more information on how to come onto the program, tbsinterview.com. You've been listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.